Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop. It is Wednesday, January 10th, and we have cold temperatures here. It's like 20, 5 degrees, something like that out there. And we've got snow, a couple inches, 3 or 4 inches, I'm not sure. It's not very much, really, maybe 3 inches. And with those cold temperatures, though, I'm burning more firewood. It's just my favorite thing to do. Not really. We have 103,582 subscribers, 833 over the last 28 days. Not terrible, but, could definitely be a lot better. That's getting down there pretty low right now. Dickey's Barbecue Pit last night was a bust. They closed early, and even before they closed early, we had already canceled it because I already know that nobody likes driving in that stuff, and that wouldn't have bothered me at all, but I know a lot of people just get all uptight about it, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm sure they weren't looking forward to going there last night. But as it turned out, the restaurant closed early anyway, so it would have been a moot point either way, and we didn't do that. I bought some new stuff. I thought I'd show you some of the new stuff here. It came in last night. First thing is, one of the things I've been talking about is the carburetor for that chainsaw. So I got a brand new carburetor here, and it does look exactly like the carburetor I need. So I think we're going to be fine, and we'll have to install that and hook up all the gadgetry that goes with this if you're not familiar. This particular carburetor came in a kit, came with some new fuel line, which I've already put new fuel line on it, so I don't need that. I also bought some adjustment screws for these kinds of chainsaws because JR had lost his, and so I bought some of those. It's good to have a dad that just buys you stuff all the time. And I bought this also because his chainsaw didn't have a compression release. This is what this is. It's a compression release button. You pull this out, or you push it in, rather. You push it in, and when you start it, as soon as it pops, has a little bit of compression, it kicks this back out. But it releases the compression so it's easier to pull. So anyway, that's another little trinket there. And then the kit itself came with a new gasket and a couple of filters, fuel filters, and a new spark plug. So, we'll use all of that eventually, if not on that particular chainsaw. So that's the first thing that came in. The next thing that came in, I forgot to show you, it also came with a air filter, extra spare air filter. The next thing that came in was, I've been watching some videos on repairing chainsaws to see if I'd get an idea on something I hadn't thought of. And, everybody's using these special chainsaw adjustment tools, so I didn't want to be left out. I don't really think you need these, honestly, but I went ahead and bought them. There's a bunch of specialty wrenches for chainsaws, and for all different kinds of chainsaws, different brands is what I mean. And it came with a convenient storage pouch. These are cheap, and so is this. So you get what you pay for, I guess. But maybe they'll work. I don't know. Haven't tried them yet. I did buy these. Now, these are worth buying if you don't have these. And you look at these and you go, what's that? Well, you can read there. Fuel gas can vent caps. Whatever moron in the government or California or wherever, created all this rage about these stupid gas caps that you can't pour gas out of. What's the point of having a gas can if you can't pour gas out of it? This is not an exaggeration. You can stand there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, pouring gas out of a 5-gallon can, trying to get it to pour into your gas can or your gas tank. And I mean, it'll take you 10 to 15 minutes. And it just doesn't come out. It just comes out in little spurts. It is the stupidest thing that anybody ever did, and I wish I could get a hold of that person by the neck right here. I wouldn't turn them loose for quite a while, let me tell you. I would love to get that person in a room and tell them what I think of them. And you wouldn't be allowed to put that on YouTube. Trust me. Anyway, all you got to do is you drill a little tiny pinhole in your, in the upper part of your gas can where it's not going to spill out. And these, you actually drill a hole this size, and then you screw these vent caps in there, and then you can undo a vent cap, and now it'll pour out. And in a minute, you can pour all the gas into your tank. In 1 minute versus 15 minutes standing out there in the cold, the wind, the rain, trying to pour out of those stupid cans. These are worth their weight in gold. I've used them before, and I bought some more because we got some new cans. Just completely stupid. Absolutely stupid. This world is eat up with stupid. Some of these people are so stupid, it's just, you can't even put another word on it. They're just plain stupid. I also bought this, and this is another thing I didn't need at all. Didn't need it at all. But it's a kit for vacuum. It's a vacuum pump, if you will, and you can vacuum your system on a radiator, or you can do other things too. And this will draw a vacuum and suck like coolant into your radiator. In other words, you can draw a vacuum in your actual radiator, and so that your radiator is negative pressure. And then you have a tube going down into your antifreeze, and this will suck it into there. And you might say, well, why do you need to go to all that trouble? Well, the modern cooling systems are pretty complicated, like on that Dodge truck. and it's very difficult to get them to get the coolant all in through all the different locations inside there. And this will suck it into those places. Now, did I buy it specifically for that? Not really, no. I actually bought it because it works on a Venturi principle, and you can suck other liquids with it too. So I bought it for that purpose primarily, but I remember when I put all that fluid into that Dodge truck, this would have been a handy thing to have had at that point. Partly because you don't have to stand there and hold in jugs up there, and they take a lot of fluid in those big systems, and you don't have to keep doing that. You just pour it all into one container, put a hose down there, and it'll just suck it right in. You don't have to do anything. So it's kind of handy. I didn't need it, but on the other hand, it's kind of handy for just lots of different fluids that we do here on the farm. And it works with an air compressor. You hook it up to an air compressor, and because of the Venturi effect, it'll suck the fluid down the pipe. Okay, but it also will allow you to put a negative pressure in your cooling system also. Not that it matters, and you probably don't care. And I've already told you more than you want to know. Okay, moving into the, let's move into the video I have for you here. This is what I did yesterday, and I'll tell you about it after I show you this little clip. Well, my friends, I rebuilt this floor jack yesterday. It took most of the day, just because it could, I think. And I let it sit overnight with this weight up here. This is probably about, I'm going to guess 15 pounds of weight. And I measured this at 12.5 inches last night, and it's about 11 inches today, so it's dropped about 1.5 inches overnight. I don't know if that's a bad thing or not. It's not good. I wished it would have held it exactly, but there could be air in the system and things like that, because I just filled it up. I don't see any oil leaking out anywhere, so I don't think it leaked any oil, and therefore I don't think it's a problem. Though you never know. Anyway, I didn't repaint the whole thing. I did repaint the white handle, and I did repaint the white mount here, or the lift, or whatever you want to call that. Otherwise, I left it just natural, because it's about 50 years old, and it's pretty much in original condition. I did have to straighten out the frame. The frame was really torqued and tweaked and bent really bad. In fact, when you would let this down, the frame would catch on the sides or I should say the lift would catch on the sides of the frame and wouldn't go all the way down. But now you can see it goes all the way down, which is what it's supposed to do. So made a lot of improvements, fixed the wheels that were broken. So it's up in good shape again, probably last another 50 years. And if it could, it did yesterday. On that, I'm not kidding you. I couldn't move without creating some kind of problem yesterday. I mean, I spilled more oil yesterday than the Exxon Valdez did up in Alaska. I am not kidding you. All over that workshop or on my work surface there, I could set something in the most out of the way place, and it was like the mousetrap game. Like a screwdriver would flip here and it would bounce over there and hit something else, bounce off the wall, and then go over and hit that oil and spill the oil. That's how it worked yesterday. I don't care where I set it. I could have set it all the way across the room and something would have found a way to get over there and turn it over. It was a mess. I'm not kidding you. I wasted more shop towels, paper towels, and things just cleaning up oil yesterday. It was just one of them days where it just, no matter what you did, it was going to happen, you know. You had to be there. It had to be comical if you could have just seen it in real life, because it was unbelievable. Well, I've been promising to play one of Don's songs. I just picked the very first one on the album, the very first album they ever did. Now, these songs were crazy, crazy scratchy when I first got them. I cleaned them up with some particular software. Don't even remember what it was now, to be honest with you. Years and years ago, probably 15 years ago, I cleaned these up. And they're not as bad as I remember. This one's not as scratchy as I thought it was going to be. But I do know the original was so scratchy you could barely hear them singing. So here it is.
Great day is surely coming when our God, our Lord and King, will have old Gabriel blow his trumpet. Then he'll have the angels sing. Then he'll come way down from heaven to this old world so full of sin. He'll gather all his little children to live up there in that peaceful land. I'm going to be ready for my Jesus on that great judgment day. I push the devil aside and then I hold my head up high, and then I get down on my knees and pray. Oh, I long to see my mother. I pray that God will save my soul. I want to be ready for my Jesus on that great judgment day. I'll push the devil aside and then I'll hold my head up high, and then I'll get down on my knees and pray.
Yeah, that's was made back in the 50s. pretty sure of that. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think it was like 58, 59. That's the best anybody in the family could remember or know about, so I'm not 100% sure of that. It could have been the very early 60s, like 1960 or somewhere in there, possibly. But anyway, you could see there in the picture that it was, John Hartford on the left, holding the banjo, and then Don Brown was holding the mandolin, and Norman Ford was holding the guitar. Now the bass, I don't know who was playing the bass on that cut, but I would assume it was Cecil Blankenship, but not Cecil Blankenship, Cecil Goforth. No, I said it right the first time. It was Cecil Blankenship. Sorry. So I think that's who it was, but I don't know that for sure because it didn't give any credit on there for the bass player. But anyway, that really cleaned up pretty well. It was the old-timey sound. That's the way they sounded. Later, I think they refined their sound. It was a little smoother, a little, still had the old-time touch, but it had a little bit more refined vocal sound, I think. And Don was a really, really good lead singer depending on the song that you had him on. In fact, I thought he was one of the best singers I've ever heard, really, in a lot of ways, when you hear his clarity of his voice and things. Anyway, let's see, what's the next thing I was going to show you here? I guess it's the demonstration time. As you can tell, a lot of discussion happens in the forum here that about what kind of wood would you use for this or would you use for that, and etc. And how the properties of the wood and different things. So I thought I just quickly picked out a whole bunch of different kinds of wood here, and I thought I'd let you hear the different tones that they make and talk about how you go about even checking the tone, because and I've done this before, but I thought I'd go a little bit deeper into it today and give you a little bit more information. I think it could be very helpful to somebody, especially if you're wanting to build an instrument from scratch and you're wanting to select your wood and know how to select your wood. And the question comes up often about domestic woods and which woods you could use, like oak especially comes up a lot. And I'm going to show you why you don't want to use oak. And I'm pretty sure it'll demonstrate it here black and white. I'm not 100% sure because you never know how these live things are going to go. But I think it will show that. I'm going to move the microphone over here a little closer to me. And so I'm going to pick up a piece of Padauk first. And, let me back up and say that any piece of wood you pick up, you can get some kind of note out of it. It's not so much the note. Like you can pick up a piece of oak and you can tap on it and it'll go ting, and you go, wow, it makes a tone. It makes that note. Yeah, it makes a note. Does the note sustain? That's your next question. And on oak, it just generally dies instantly. Like it'll go ping, and that's it. It doesn't go ping like that. It doesn't do that. So here's a piece of Padauk. And where you hold it makes a difference. You take the length of your wood and you just kind of, you grab it near the top, but not right at the top. It won't ring as good here. In fact, it don't ring at all. Listen. See, it just dead. Now hold it down about here. Now listen. There it is. Can you hear that sustain? There's a long sustain. Now I'll just show you how long this sustain is here. That long. So that's a good piece of wood right there. You can tell the sustain. It's all in where you grab it. And sometimes you have to grab it 2 or 3 times till you get that note. Like, if you grab it here, dead. I mean, it makes a note, but it's dead. Just dead. Okay, so that's Padauk. Just as an example. Here's a piece of, I'm going to think this is Purple Heart is what I'm going to guess this is. Again, you got to grab it in a certain place. So right about here, now this is a shorter piece, so it's going to have a higher note. You know, that all that makes a difference. You know, if you get a long board, you can still do this, but you have to, you know, grab it in the right place and you tap it, and you're going to hear a longer, deeper note. It's going to go boom instead of ding. You know, all those things have to be taken into consideration. What you really want to know, though, does it vibrate? Does it sustain the note? And if it doesn't vibrate, why would you want to put it in an acoustic instrument? Pretty self-explanatory. So listen to this. This is Purple Heart. Now it's going to be a much higher note because it's a short piece of wood. So I can hear the sustain about that long. So it sustains. It's a high note. Shorter piece of wood's going to sustain shorter too. It's not going to sustain as long. Like a big bell is going to ring a much longer time than a little tiny tinkle tinkle bell. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same. All those concepts are the same. But the point is, it does sustain, and you can hear it, and it's clear, and it's a real clear note. Okay, here's just another piece of Badook, a different shape and different size. So again, it's going to have a totally different kind of sound, but it'll sustain. About that long. And again, it's really short, but it's wide and fat. Now here's, I think this is another piece of Purple Heart. No, much deeper note. See, it's a longer piece, wider piece, much deeper note, but it sustains really nice. Really nice sounding piece of wood. This would be a great piece for a bridge right here. A great piece of wood for a bridge. Here's a piece of, I'm pretty sure this is mahogany. You know, sometimes mahogany and sapele is really hard to tell apart. Again, it's got a sustain, but not a real good sustain. This is why I don't think it's especially good for using it on a top of a guitar. Lots of people like a mahogany top for a guitar. Not me. It doesn't sustain very good, you know. And again, why would you want to use it on a top of a guitar, on an acoustic guitar? Now, if it's an electric guitar, it doesn't matter, you know. I mean, I don't mean to make it sound trivial, but it really doesn't matter. Your electronics is what's giving you your sound on your electric guitar for the most part. And people will argue with that a little bit, but for the most part, that's true. You can hear it in it sustains, but not a long sustain. About like that. You know, it's got a sustain, and it's a tone wood. So, you know, it is what it is. Mahogany's not a bad choice on a lot of things, but for my money, it's going to be your neck, your back, your sides. Your blocks on the inside would be good for mahogany. Lots of things like that for mahogany. Not so much on the top, in my opinion. Here's a little tiny strip of ebony. It's the biggest piece of ebony I have, so this is all I could do. Again, now I got to find a good spot. Especially on these little pieces, it's amazingly deep tone, amazingly deep. So let's see. It's a long sustain for a little tiny thin piece of wood. It's amazingly deep tone and a long sustain. Now that's why ebony is so good for, you know, tone wood type things, especially bridges and things like that. And because it's so dense. Density is another thing you want to consider about what you're using it for on your instrument. You don't want super dense woods on your top as far as your soundboard goes. It's great to have it for this to transfer the sound through and then spread it out in your softwood, in your top. This is rosewood. And again, finding the sweet spot to hold it. Much different kind of note. It's got a nice, clean, mid-tone note. Long sustain. Very, very good piece of wood there for, making a note. Okay, here's a piece of cherry. Now, in this cherry's defense here, it's not quarter sawn, so I didn't have any domestic wood that was quarter sawn. But still, it's got some tone to it, and it's got some sustain to it. So listen to this. Well, not a very long sustain. And keep in mind, it's not quarter sawn. But it does have some sustain. So, there, it's not bad. It's got some sustain. It would be okay to use in an instrument. Again, I would only use it probably on the backs and the sides. You could probably make, your blocks out of it on the inside. You could probably make... a bridge out of it. It probably wouldn't be my first choice, but of domestic woods, it wouldn't be a bad choice. Now, here's the infamous oak. Now, this is a longer piece. It is quarter sawn. You can tell it's quarter sawn by the medullary rays there, or whatever you want to call those things. Anyway, so this one should be the most tone wood here, because it's longer. It's, this one should just ring like a bell. Okay? It's not going to, I don't think. Watch it ring. Just be my luck. But anyway, I'm holding it up about here is about where it should be held. Man, it's just dead almost instantly. It just quits vibrating in your hand. You can feel it even in your hand. There's nothing there, every piece of wood that you pick up, you can make a note with it. Does it sustain? Does it vibrate? Does it do something acoustically? This doesn't. It just doesn't do anything acoustically. So, that's all I can tell you. Hope that makes sense for you. Hope that gives you some idea of how to check a piece of wood in the store. When you go to a hardwood lumber store, you can pick up your board, you can tap on it, and you can listen to it and see does this one, and then compare it to the piece of wood next to it, and see if it sounds as good or whatever. And you might find that certain woods are way more noteworthy than other woods are. And you definitely will find that when you tap on oak, because there's just not much there. It just kind of dies real quick. There's just nothing going on. And I was hoping to find a piece of sycamore the right size or some decent size, but I didn't have anything good. And sycamore really has a nice sustaining tone also. Okay. Moving on here. Thomas Armstrong was the first one before we went live, and he says, good morning, Jerry. Wondering if you've had any experience cleaning Coleman lanterns. I have 12 or 13 and need to clean the old shellac gas out of the founts. Could you recommend a cleaner? Thomas, to be truthful, I don't have a lot of experience with cleaning those. I have taken them completely apart before and worked on them. It's been years ago. I haven't messed with a Coleman lantern in probably 20 years at least, maybe 25, maybe 40. It's been a long time. I used to use them exclusively when I would go deer hunting out at what we called the Rolfing place, which is my wife's in-law, or my wife's parents' place. In fact, her mother's place was a farm where I used to deer hunt all the time, and I would go out there by myself, and there was no electric out there at all, and I would use Coleman lanterns every weekend. But honestly, I don't. If I was going to clean it, I'll tell you what I do. Now, 90% of you are going to go like this when I tell you this, but I would either just use the gas that you use in the Coleman fuel and try that, because that's not very strong gas. I mean, it's very explosive. Be very careful with it that way in terms of flames and sparks and things. Very explosive. But it's good for cleaning. In fact, I used it on cleaning the jack that you saw in the video just a moment ago. I actually used some Coleman fuel out there cleaning that. But the other thing that I would use, when I start off with fuels that are lesser like that, like you can use lighter fluid like this. I use that a lot too. Lighter fluid may work. Your paint thinners might work. I start off with those kinds of lesser toxic, if you will, type cleaners. And then if I'm still not getting it done, I go to lacquer thinner. Lacquer thinner will clean dang near anything. I know a lot of you will do that when it comes to cleaning with lacquer thinner and stuff, but I use it all the time. You probably want to wear gloves and stuff. I don't hardly bother with that either, to be honest with you, but I know most people do. So there you go. Everybody's different, When you grow up like I did, like in a greasy workshop that my dad had. I mean, you talk about a place that was nasty, full of solvents and everything, and nobody cared. You just used whatever you had and just poured it all over it. Gasoline, anything. It didn't matter. And it's just kind of the way I grew up. So I'm kind of used to that stuff. Carolyn, well, Dottie Hildebrandt's there, and then Carolyn Fike. And wow, had all kinds of flooding yesterday. Yeah, I know a lot of people have been hit hard by this weather. Put it in the comments if you were hit hard. I feel for you. It was, a storm came through here. I mean, a snowstorm type thing came through here, but it wasn't anything real important, I don't think. At least I haven't seen any damage or any problems here yet. Rod Wintler, Paul Walton says it was below 50 this morning in Central Florida. Yeah, just a whole freeze wave there, right? Moving on down, looking for any questions or comments for the most part. And going after we went live, Kenneth Ennis was the first one. Thank you. There's lots of well wishes and feeling better and all that. Bill Mumbo says it's a cold, sunny day in London. Yeah. Hope you've been practicing coughing to get better. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of coughing. There's no doubt about that. Spike Moto, where does that compression release doodad install on the chainsaw? Does it replace the one that is already there? Well, his didn't have. I mean, it had a place for one, but the hole was open. Well, you can't run it with that hole open. There's an actual hole in the side of the chamber where this thing is supposed to screw in. So you screw this there is an actual hole right in the side of the chamber of where the piston is. And so you screw this in. Well, that blocks the hole off. Now you've got compression. You push this in like that, and it opens slightly here. You can see how that little mushroom thing it popped out there. I think you can see it. Well, maybe I don't have it in the camera good enough, but you can see it pop up there. That lets air pass through there. Well, that releases the compression. So when you start your pull, it allows you to pull it quickly. Well, when the spark hits and the piston, pops on that first thing, well, that'll blow this shut. I mean, it blows it shut. Now the compression is tight in the cylinder. So this just gives you, like on my big saw, the big Husqvarna big saw that I have, which is a pretty big saw, really. It's like 70-some cc's. It's pretty hard to pull that sucker over. I can do it, but it's pretty hard to pull it over without the compression release. You put the compression release on, and you can pull it much easier, and then it pops, and this pops back out. So that's what it is. It just goes in the side. So how did that saw run without this? Well, I made an aluminum plug exactly with those threads on it, and I just screwed the aluminum plug in the hole to plug the hole off. So, it's even possible that aluminum plug is my problem. I mean, it's possible that maybe it's still leaking compression that I'm not aware of. I don't see it, I don't hear it or anything, but who knows? You never know with this stuff. So I'll put this in there, and then he'll have the compression release like he should have anyway. There you go. Robert Fraley says the word stupid has been dumbed down over the years. You got that right. Oh my gosh. No, seriously, people that create stupid things like that. I mean, it's just, I can't even put it on a scale. It's that stupid. It's just, 100 years we were able to pour stuff out of a can. Now we can't. What progress is that? I mean, if you got a problem, let's solve your problem, but let's not make it where you can't pour gas out of a can. I mean, you might think I'm exaggerating, but see, I do this a lot. This is something I don't do just once in a blue moon like most people. You guys, that cut your own grass or something, you might pour gas once a month or something out of a can. Well, I do it once or twice a day here, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it takes 10 minutes to empty a 5-gallon can. It takes 10 minutes to empty a 5-gallon can. You're sitting there and you're just holding it and you're holding it. And, it's not easy to hold a 5-gallon can to begin with. And it just takes forever for it to come out. It's just go, because it has to suck air back through the whole thing. And it just comes out in little spurts. When you put those little valves in there, it just pours straight out. Just straight out. No problem at all. And you can pour it in like a minute compared to 15 minutes. To me, I can't even put a scale on how stupid that is. I mean, that's just so stupid that it's... And I would love, I'm not kidding you, I would just love to tear into the people that design that stuff. I would tear them a new one so fast they wouldn't even know what hit them. They wouldn't even have a chance to get a word in edgeways. Thomas said the music sounded great. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of old Uncle Don there. He put quite a mark on bluegrass music in Missouri, at least. Let's see. Moving down, looking for questions and comments here. It bounced on me again. I'm not sure where it bounced to. Gee whiz, it must have bounced quite a ways. Yeah, it did. It moved that far up the screen, and all I did was one little click on the mouse wheel here. Dennis Moon says something about, thanks for playing the Ozark Mountain Boys. I love the old-time music and the sound. Yeah, the Ozark Mountain Trio is what they were called. Now later, it became Don Brown and the Ozark Mountain Trio. And then he also usually had a fiddle player in the band, so it was Don Brown and whatever the fiddle player's name was, and the Ozark Mountain Trio. Let's see, Dottie Hildebrand, your Uncle Don sounded better than I heard him sing on another album. Yeah, it really just depends on what you hear. That particular sound there, to me, doesn't really, I can tell it's Don, but that's not what I remember hearing the most, because by the time I heard him, it was 10 years later, really, and they had a little different sound, a little smoother sound, in my opinion. But he had a great voice. He really did. Maybe I'll find one of those songs and play for you later, to let you hear one of those. Jeff says, has your brother considered building customer guitars? I think he's thinking about it. He's about ready to retire from his main line of work, and I think he's got that on his mind. So I'll be letting you know if his situation changes on that. He's about, I don't know, 10 years younger than me, maybe, something like that. Chuck Heidbreder, would a tuning meter pick up the tone, or is the sustain too short? No, you can pick it up with tuner. If you get it up close enough, not every time, but like when I'm tap tuning my tops, I would always put them in front of the tuner and tap on them. But those had a real sustain and a real note and everything, very clear, and you could tell what the note was very clearly on a tuner. And you can do that with these too. And I'm looking for my tuner, and it's like, where did it go? Oh, here it is. It's on my desk. I'll see if this will pick it up. If it will, I'll try it here. I'll use this rosewood. It seemed to have a really good tone. It's a C, almost exactly a C. Now it says G. Wait a minute. Maybe I looked at it wrong. Yeah, I think it was a G. I think I just misread it. The glare on there caused it to. But anyway, it clearly picks up the note. Moving on down, Ben Boyd. Chris says, love your videos. Thank you very much, Chris. And then Ben Boyd says, would be nice to hear now how native cedar sounds. I don't have any of that's quarter sawn at all. I think I do have a piece of cedar over there, but I don't know that it'll sound like anything. So here's a piece of cedar. Now, it's not quarter sawn. It's got knots in it. Most of the cedar around here is going to be like that. It does actually have a decent tone. About that long. Again, being a softwood, and if it was quarter sawn, you could definitely make a decent top out of a guitar with this. But the problem with this particular kind of cedar is it's pretty darn hard to find a piece that doesn't have knots in it. These things grow from the ground up, with limbs, and so it's pretty hard to find something that doesn't have knots in it. But if you could find that piece, you could make a real nice top. In fact, I repaired a mandolin, I remember, that was made with a cedar top, and it sounded fine. It's and I know it would sound fine. There's no doubt about it in my mind that you could make a good one. And this has got a nice tone. It's got a nice sustain, a nice tone. So it'd be no problem at all. Yeah, almost any wood will make a note for sure. The true test, in my opinion, is it a nice clear ringing note? First of all, not a thud, like little wimpy note, but a nice clear note. And does it sustain? And if it does those two things, you're home free. Again, though, you should still apply the logic of where would this best suit the guitar. Hardwoods, dense woods, you generally do not want them on your top. You generally don't want to do that because they're just not going to sustain the same kind of vibration that a softwood will. And they won't be as mellow sounding and that sort of thing. Let's see. The Freeze says, have you ever tried persimmon? Yeah, I just, like that much. I really have, but I never really have any persimmon in the shop. It is the one thing. But persimmon is a good dense wood. Some people call it the American ebony because it's so it's dense and it's tight grain and that sort of thing. It's a white wood instead of black. But it would be good. I would, I'm more like making an assumption on this because I really haven't got good firsthand knowledge. But I would think you could make bridges out of it and things like that. It would probably be okay for the back and sides as well. Again, I wouldn't use it on a top just because it's a hardwood and it's dense and it just wouldn't be the thing to do. Yeah, persimmon would be good. He's talking about the finding big trees. Actually, persimmon, at least in this area, can grow pretty big. We got a decent sized one in the backyard. It's not a big one. When I remember growing up as a kid, we had 10 acres in Town and Country. I told you where I used to live was surrounded by all these super rich people. I mean, they were all just filthy rich people, the old rich. And we had little 10 acres in the middle of that where we had our horses and stuff. And on that property, there was 2 big persimmon trees. And I mean, these were big persimmon trees. I mean, like, they were, this big around. I mean, like 20 to 24 inch persimmon tree. I'm sure they were every bit that big. And it's not just me as a child remembering that. I'm sure they were that big. Because there was a lot of other trees that we built tree houses in that weren't near that big. And that's why I remember how big they were. They were just huge. And anyway, so you can find that persimmon in large trees, and it would make great tone wood. I would love it if I could, go back to that place and cut one of those type trees and use that wood, but that isn't going to happen. Let's see. Moving on down. Yeah, Brad says, Uncle Don, yeah, what a voice. Yeah, he really did have, and I encourage you to go out and listen to some of his music. You can find quite a bit of it out there. I'll try to pick out something that I think is one of my favorites and let you hear it. Don, one of the things I remember, Ray Hicks was a prominent DJ in the St. Louis area, and Ray was connected with all the big stars and stuff, and Don was definitely connected in with Ray Hicks. And Ray Hicks was introducing Don on stage one time on a live show. It was a big deal show. It was in Clayton, Missouri. And anyway, what I distinctly remember Ray saying in this recording, because I have a version of it somewhere, and I just don't know where it is. But he says, Don Brown was the first one to record Slewfoot in bluegrass. And in other words, Slewfoot, which is a real popular bluegrass tune, was recorded by Porter Wagner, I believe, and somehow Don knew Porter too, and I think Porter was, I don't know, I'm probably making this up, but it seemed like Porter had some Missouri connections. I just can't remember honestly, but anyway, somehow Don knew Porter Wagner, and anyway, so right after Porter came out with Slewfoot, Don came out with Slewfoot. And so Ray Hicks is introducing Don on stage, and I know that he says this in the recording that I have heard. Don Brown was the first one to record this in bluegrass music or whatever. And I thought that was pretty cool, just a bit of trivia there, because it's such a popular song. Let's see, moving on down. Thomas said there's a lot of snow and school delays and things there in New Hampshire. Ronald Todd, you can use carb cleaner on the lanterns. Yeah, anything like that. I use anything and everything on that stuff. I'm not real particular, especially if it's a metal thing. I'll use just about anything on it to clean it and see how it works. Often I will start with a milder something and see if it works. And if it just isn't cutting the mustard, well, then I'll go to something more volatile, if you will. Okay. Chipwood's talking about a technique there that I'm not quite familiar with. Something about marbles in the tank and shake the heck out of it. Well, that probably would do some cleaning for sure. Bad Bob, we had lots of rain and wind here in Myrtle Beach and lots of tornado warnings. Hope you feel better, Jerry. Okay, thanks. Moving on down, Joseph Supley, it looks like. Interesting demonstration for testing tone and sustain in different woods. No quarter sawn wood is stronger than regular sawn wood, but quarter sawn wood superior in tone and sustain. Well, there is some, Joseph, there's some argument on that, and I'm going by the real old school. And when I say real old school, I'm talking back to Stradivari. He would only use quarter sawn wood. He would not use plain saw wood in his instruments, or at least not that I'm aware of. He built something like 3,000 instruments, so he could have used some plain saw in there somewhere. But anyway, quarter sawn wood is where it's at, especially for your top. There's a lot of theories, and some of it might be a little bit of hype. But the fact that, if you're thinking about the grain, like my fingers here would be the grain. Well, by having, like in your book match it, you split that piece of wood and you open it up like this, and then that's your top. So there's a seam down the middle. Well, then the grain matches from one side to the other, just like it would in your hands here. And the theories are that, that helps give you an even tone across. It helps in the fact that quarter sawn, the speed of the vibration through all those quarter saws being the same makes it more equal, more uniform. There's a lot of theories about all that stuff. Whether any of it's 100% true or not, I don't know. I just know that, I've read about a lot of that stuff, and it makes sense to me. So I use those theories. Now, on the backs and sides, there's a lot of people that just swear by the plain sawed wood as the better sound than the quarter sawn. They say the quarter sawn is a little too stiff. I can kind of give them that. I kind of get that. And I've heard really good sounding instruments both ways. The difference is that when you do the quarter sawn, you can make it a little thinner. So you can kind of compensate for that difference by making the wood a little bit thinner, and it's still strong because it's quarter sawn. So there's theories on both sides of it, arguments on both sides of it, and I get both sides of it. I kind of get it. My preference is quarter sawn. That's all I can tell you. Joseph says he also really enjoyed the Uncle song. Well, thank you. Simon Jardine. By the way, I forgot to tell you. I meant to tell you on that. On the album cover that you saw all the artwork on that. That was all hand drawn by John Hartford, and he did all the artwork on that first little album. It was a 45 extended play, as you saw there. It's what they called it. So it had 4 songs, 2 songs on each side. It was just one of those little 45 discs. Moving on down. Simon Jardine says, hi from Scotland. After the last tour fell through due to COVID, which I had tickets for, any plans for another? Not at this time, Simon, but I'm open to it. We might do it differently. We might just do 2 or 3 guys coming over or something like that, and it would be fun. I would love to do it. I really would. But we'd probably have to have somebody take the reins from that side to kind of organize it and help set it up. If it would happen, it would be wonderful. I would love it. But I kind of don't see it happening. Paul Walton, I am building a tenor uke using the eastern cedar on the top, Paduke for the back and sides. Okay, that should work out pretty good. I think that actually should be a pretty good combination, really, especially if you can get clear eastern cedar there. Eastern red cedar, we just call it red cedar most of the time. Eastern cedar, though, is probably the proper name. Yeah, West Plains, Missouri. That's what I started to say about Porter Wagner. I almost said that because I thought that was true, but then I thought, well, maybe I'm confusing that with that other. There was another country star, a lady country star. I want to say her name, and I can't think of it right now, but she's from down there too, West Plains. Yeah, I thought Porter was from West Plains. I really did. And so I know Don knew Porter, I'm not saying real well. I kind of think, I could be dreaming this from a child. I really don't know this for a black and white fact, but I seem to remember that somehow or another Don actually played on Porter's show one time. I don't know if that's true. I kind of think he did, though. But anyway, regardless, I know he knew him somehow. The Freeze says, I just watched a YouTube video of a guy repairing the neck block on the Don Brown mandolin. The guy did a great job. Well, good. Yeah, I've heard about that. I haven't watched it yet. McClanahan, I'm sure he did. Soggy's Adventure. I can't find anyone to take on my 1966 Harmony repair. I'm heartbroken. Well, I'm sorry about that. I'm pretty sure Caleb could do it. He was my apprentice. Caleb Mills Guitars on YouTube. I don't make recommendations. I'm just offering that name up because I know Caleb, and I know Caleb's a good guy. You can check with him and see what you want to do if you want to. He's over in the Kansas City area, Kansas City, Missouri area. Jeff Puris, where are you? As in me? I'm in South Central Missouri, near Rolla, Missouri. Rolla is a college town. Oh, no, I guess he's talking to somebody else. Soggy's Adventure says he's in Maryland, so I don't know. Oh, yeah. Gee, I can't read. That's my problem, Jeff. He even said, Soggy's Adventures, where are you? I just thought that was all part of one username or something when I read it the first time. I tell you, I'm not good at reading. Eric Sandell, thanks for giving so deep a lessons on how different woods sound. I learned a lot. Greetings from Finland. Just now, 0C. Yeah, and, again, Eric, on that, the thing to practice is holding it and tapping on it, and even where you tap it sometimes, up and down, all of that matters. But the point is that you'll find an optimum place, and that's where that note will sound the best, and then listen to it. Try to do that on oak, and it'll just go no matter where you do it. It just doesn't do anything, Doesn't sound as bad as it gives you a note, but it's just a real short, unsustained note. Okay? So that's what you're looking for, is you're looking for a sustained, clear note. And Soggy's talking about his instrument, I guess, a little more there. And then Ben Boyd says, thanks for the cedar demo. Is that an Oscar behind you on the toolbox, your left shoulder? I assume you won it for best original score. Yeah, that is an Oscar. That was sent to me by one of my viewers. And I remember the liner note says, this Oscar is awarded to you for Best in Chocolate. And if you don't know what that means, if you're new, there's a video out there, a video series, I think it's 4 or 5 parts, maybe even 6 parts, I'm not sure, about chocolate, which was the name given by a little girl to a really high-end violin that she owned since she was a little girl. And the violin got crushed in a moving van when they moved across the United States. And it was crushed into splinters and big holes and just 100 pieces, if not more. And I put it all back together and had a classical type violinist come in and play it, and sounded really wonderful. And then the girl herself played it on video and sent me a clip of that, and she also sent a beautiful letter. And I had Melissa, who was working for me at the time, read the letter as if it was the girl's voice, and it'll bring tears to your eyes. It was just a beautiful thing. And so that's why I got my Oscar, was the best in chocolate. And again, chocolate was just the name the girl gave to the violin. So she always called the violin chocolate because it looked kind of a chocolate color. Anyway, moving on down. Let's see, are we out yet? Marigold says, great to hear you, Uncle. Thank you. Carolyn Fike, isn't the marimba a great example of use of tone woods, tunable? Yeah. I'm not real familiar with the names of all those different instruments, but yeah, that's exactly what those instruments are doing. Those marimbas, and there's xylophones, and different. They take those tone woods are laying there, and they tap them, and they make that note, and that's exactly it. Now, depending on how those notes are played, how those machines are made, those instruments are made. I shouldn't call them machines, I guess. But anyway, depending on how they're made, it affects their sustain and all that stuff too. And some of those notes will sustain, some of them don't sustain. But anyway, the point is, it's all done with tone wood, just like this piece of wood right here. And not too different from the size of this either. I mean, some of these won't be quite this long, maybe on the longer pieces that they have on the deeper end. They will be longer, and then as you shorten them, the note goes higher, of course. It's the same way. That's why you have to take all that into consideration when you're picking up a board to tap on it. When you're about ready to purchase that board, you need to take all that into consideration, so that you know what you're comparing. Are you comparing apples and apples or apples and oranges? And it doesn't matter if you're comparing apples and oranges, but you just need to be aware that that's what you're comparing. In other words, like you pick up this one maybe Paducah board in the hardwood store, maybe it's only 5 feet long, and you tap on it, it makes this kind of note. Then you pick up a zebra wood board, and it's a lot longer, and it makes a longer sustaining note. Well, you need to realize the difference there. So, you have to kind of take all of those kinds of things into account of what you're comparing when you listen to those notes. But I guess my point of this whole demonstration is it really matters where you hold it, and it really matters, how you tap on it and everything too. Like if you tap it with a dead punch, it's going to kill your sustain. You tap like that, All those little things make a difference, and you just need to practice it. Grab pieces of wood and tap on them, and then you'll start to hear the differences. If it matters to you, you'll want to practice that. I always did. I've been doing that really since day one, so it's kind of second nature to me these days. Okay, I think that's it, guys. Probably longer than normal. We went a full hour today, so thank you very much, and I appreciate it. We will be back with you tomorrow with something else.